Alright, I'm going to start out with the Russian red lace snakeskins, try to go over my ideas and my thoughts on methods between line breeding and colony breeding of fancy guppies. It's a little complicated because there's a lot of different views on it. The main thing, I call these, what I'm doing here, is line breeding. And what you do is you take a usually a trio, a couple trios, a little more of one line of strain of your guppies, mark it 1 or A, then another one and mark it 2 or B or both. And the reason for that is you want to run 2 consecutive parallel lines of the same fish so that you can have another related strain to pull from for the future when you're going to have to cross in some fish to strengthen the line. So now what I do that's a little different, you can see I have some older males in here, and I also introduce some younger males because, as I've said in other videos, some of these males really can't catch up to the females as much anymore because females are pretty fast. And I have them in 10-gallon tanks, and you can see that I have a little bit of both. The fish, obviously, like the last video, are eating some live baby brine shrimp, so this way I can get them all out there. Excuse me, so you can see them. But to line breed successfully, you want to start with at least 2 trios of the strain and raise each of the trios, or if you have 4, but 2 in separate tanks. And like I said before, this creates 2 parallel lines from the same color variety of the fish. So you're going to have to, at some point, cross in the other ones in a future generation to increase the vigor and possibly the fins or the color in the fish, because it can deteriorate. So like I said, I have this going, and somewhere in there, like I said, I have a couple of great looking males, but I put in these young ones. So that's probably making things sound a little bit more difficult than it really is, but you're just really running 2 separate lines of the same variety. And the other option is you can, if you have like a guppy friend that also has the same strain, you can kind of keep fish between each other, and they can run the other line, so that way you can get fish from him a future generation and cross them in. So once you start getting drops of fry, and you're going to want to pull the babies out and mark it with which line it is, whatever you chose, either 1 or A or whatever, and also put the date that the babies were born. And from there, you just want to really feed them heavily. Like I said in other videos, I am one of the ones that believes in feeding them live baby brine shrimp at least once a day. And then I also feed them a variety of flake foods if I give them the second feeding. Or I mix up these 5 different high protein foods, and I feed them, especially like if the brine shrimp hatch crashes and I don't have any, I use the it's like a high density, high protein food. So I try to do that. After you've kept them in a small tank, the babies, for at least a week, maybe 2, and the reason for that is so they don't have to search and hunt for the food. You want to keep them in a small tank so they can get to the food quite easily. And After a few weeks, you want to move them into a larger tank, a 5.5 or a 10. So, and that'll help increase the growth on the fish. So at that point, once they develop into the strain that you can kind of tell what they are, you want to separate the males and put them in a second 10-gallon tank, and then keep the females in that first 10-gallon tank. So I usually take some of the tank water from the tank that they were in as combined and split that into the new 10, and then move the males into there, and then fill both tanks with fresh water that I treat with prime. And so once they get a little larger, you're going to want to select the males that have a thicker caudal peduncle, which is a really cool sounding word, but it means the base of the tail, the base of the body where the tail starts from. So you can kind of see I selected somewhat thicker peduncles right there. So also you want to select the best color. This may involve taking a few different males, which is kind of what I end up doing. So you want to eliminate any fish that are growing out that have any deformities, bent spines. You got to get rid of them no matter what. And if they have like a color variation that you don't like, because you don't want to introduce that into the the next generation. So as far as females, I try to pick ones that also have a nice short squat body, the right color that I'm looking for, and also a nice thick peduncle area. So you don't necessarily have to pick tail color. You can experiment and try to do that with the females. It depends on your line whether or not the color is on the male side or the female side. So I try to use females 2 to 3 months of age. If you wait too long to use them, the males really may have difficulty in impregnating them due to the thicker membrane that they'll have to penetrate. So in other words, if they're a virgin for too long, you really may not be able to get babies out of them. So I usually select 2 trios, but these tanks are, there's obviously more fish in there than a couple of trios, because like I said a few times already, introducing younger males, and at some point in the near future, I'm going to replace these older males. So that's one of the things that, like I said, you mark the tanks, because it's like I've done with the snow white albinos. I marked one tank 1 for this line, which is the one that had the babies, and you can see that female's already filling up, which is nice. And this one, this female's starting to fill up as well. So they're doing really good. This male's getting a little bit of a darker color variation in the tail, so I'm gonna have to monitor that. This one is not getting that at all. And the other new fish are doing really well. The whatever we're gonna call them, Santa Claus, half white reds, God knows what. But anyway, that's what you want to do in the beginning when you get a line. Like I try to, if it's something I'm bringing in from overseas and I can only afford 2 pair, I just will go with small tanks and put them in and mark the tanks 1 and 2. Anyway, I'll continue this some more with the fish room downstairs. This is the extra fish room out of necessity in the computer room. All right, thanks. Now, colony breeding is a little bit different. You're going to have different fish from different generations in the tank. Maybe not as much with the babies as I've done here, but the reason why I colony breed certain ones, like with the black lace snakeskins that I'm working on, is because I'm trying to get the strain set. So I lost that initial male that had like a gold and black snakeskin pattern, and now I'm getting more like a silver and black, which it's not so bad, like a silver, white, and black. But I'm not getting any reds. I did in previous generations cull out the reds that were coming in, and I have them in a separate tank, and they are like my emergency cross to go back to them. So these, I have a couple tanks of them. This is line 1 and 2, and I got babies in each tank, so things are progressing pretty nicely. And if all goes well, another couple generations, if I'm getting pure looking fish and I can eliminate some of this black coloration in the body so that it's more of a complete snakeskin pattern, then I'll start selling them. So that's the goal. So what I did, I selected the females that had the black in the tail, which was more like a Moscow trait. And then I put the other ones that didn't have the black tail in with the males that were that I was getting, some that were red and black. So that's how I differentiated things, and very happy with how it's turning out. So some other lines that I do line breed is the platinum red Mosaic big ears. This is actually still the original male. He's hanging in there. He has turned mostly black. Most of the red has turned black. This male is from the first generation. And the females, I picked the longfin ones that I put in there. And they're doing fantastic. This one, now I didn't mark these tanks because I did it in a different way. The ones on the left side of the pump, which the pump is right there, I kept each batch of babies separate, and that's what these are as well. Another batch, this is from November, and they're just starting to color up. So so that's still line breeding, and I'm going to pull out the better looking males. Obviously I'll sell some, and then I'll pull out some of the other males. I also do the line breeding with the yellow deltas, and these are the breeders. I selected the ones with the best yellow coloration, including the females. So so far so good. They're doing fantastic, and I have another line of them in a different part of the fish room, so they don't have as an intense yellow as these do. But anyway, getting back to the colony breeding, which I also do with other lines that I'm trying to set, like these red blue metalhead things. So they're pretty good. I do this to try to get the line set. The half black blues, which look a little purple, those I also line breed, and that's them. The other ones that are colony bred are the galaxy or nebula steel or whatever in the world we're going to call them. So I have these separated because I want more of an orange and black coloration. So that's the males I pulled out. I do have a couple of gold-bodied ones in there. So the colony breeding is only possible with certain types of guppies. Ones with smaller bodies, such as these galaxy nebula steel medusa things, cobra skins, pingus probably. And you want to keep the line from falling apart while you're colony breeding. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to have to call out any males that look a little bit different. And you got to do that immediately, because they could damage the line before you even know it. Because unfortunately, a fact of life, the ugliest males with fish will get to the best females in no time, before you even knew they were in the tank. So I also do the colony breeding with this one because I'm trying to set the line. This is the red-blue Mosaic metalheads. But so this is a young male that's growing out. He's got the right colors that I want. So I keep him in there. You can net out any babies that you get and actually start an additional colony, because you don't want to lose the line should a disaster happen to your colony tank. So I try to run a few different tanks of the ones I colony breed. So they're actually all separate, but they're related, so I can cross males in if I need to at a later date. Usually in a few generations. So you may have to do a complete reset if something happens and you lose the main line of them. That's always a possibility. That's why another reason I keep more than one line of more than one tank of the ones that I colony breed. So also try to take a day a week and not feed the fish. So I tend to do that except with the show guppies, the ones I'm going to put in shows. I think it gives them a chance to clear their digestive system, and it also stops them from getting really bored with the foods that you're giving them. So it's just my idea. If you're raising fish to enter in shows, I would still feed them every day and not stop. But the other thing you want to be careful with, I try with water changes, and you can see I have obviously multiple tanks. I use a Python water changer, and I try to do certain levels of the tanks each time I do it. Like a few days a week I do water changes. I try to do like 25 at a time. But what I'll do is I will go the same way with the water change with the Python every time. I'll go from start to far right, then go to the left all the way to the end, and then come down here and do the next row and do that. And the reason for that is because you're going to drip a little bit of the water from one tank into the next, and so they're kind of almost in related water from tank to tank. So I mean, it's just my idea. It may not be a lot of truth to it, but I think it is, because I've just had issues where I just skipped and did them completely out of order. This is the other line breed of the platinum red Mosaic big ears. This one is, they're all mature. There's only a couple of males in there that are the normal fin variety. So there's only really a few females in there. The long fin males can't do anything. They're pretty useless, but they look good. This is another one that's growing out. These are from October. And I have less females in there than I thought I would. So, and that's yet another one. And like I said, they're eating live baby brine shrimp. Now on these, the dorsals are just starting to color up, and it does take a little longer with them. So once the weather gets better, I'll probably put another trio or two of these things on Aquabid or eBay, or whichever one is functioning. And normally with these, I throw in an extra long fin male because I don't want to be stuck with a whole bunch of them. And you know, they look kind of cool, and people want something cool in their tanks. So anyway, that's a little bit of a background on line breeding versus colony breeding. Once again, to increase the vigor of your line, I recommend sticking with line breeding, because that's going to be your best option, because you'll have multiple tanks of related males that you can pick from, and to increase the vigor of your fish, or improve the fins, or you know, if need be, if you have a problem and the line kind of crashes, you can go brother to sister and bring it back to what it was initially. The colony breeding works for certain things, like some swordtail guppies. I wouldn't do it with purebred strains, just if you're trying to set a line, or like the medusas, galaxies, pingus, other stuff like that. So anyway, that's some of my ideas on these different types of breeding, and look at some of the other tanks. So I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any questions or you disagree with some of the stuff I say, feel free to put it down there and I'll address it. Because some of the things that I do because it works for me, and I'm not trying to say I'm wrong. I'm just saying that the stuff I've been doing for years, if it works, I stick with it. So anyway, thanks for watching.